Hey guys, Mr. Antoon here, Chapter 11, Congress. This is 11.3 and most likely 11.4. I'm giving you the learning targets. You guys can look at those as we start out. So here we go. How is Congress organized in order to make policy, public policy? So it's a bicameral legislature, which means two chambers, two houses. And you should know this from the Great Compromise, the Connecticut Compromise between Virginia and New Jersey's policies. So we came up with two. So the lower house is the House of Representatives and the upper house is the Senate. You can see where they're located in the Capitol today in DC. So here we go. The House has 435 members, and it is based on population, and the Senate has 100 members, two per state. It's 2 terms of term. It's 2 years versus 6 years. You have to be 25 years old minimum, a U.S. citizen for 7+ years, and you inhabit the state that you want to represent. For the Senate, Congressman, you would call him Congressman, Representative. Obviously, you'd call them Senator, and you have to be 30 years old, year minimum, and then U.S. citizen 9+ years, and then inhabit the state as well. You represent people in districts in the House, so a smaller district, and then the entire state. There's two of you that represent the entire state. So you have limited debates in the House, and you have unlimited debates called filibusters in the Senate. The House brings impeachment charges, which happened to Trump, and then the Senate tries the impeachment case in which they didn't, he was not guilty, and they let him go. Okay? So our congressional leadership, it looks like this, but two of these members in 18 retired. You can see at the top right that, I forgot his name, but then Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House. Once they retired and then leadership flipped, they go away and they're replaced. So Nancy Pelosi becomes the Speaker of the House. McCarthy goes from the third person to the second person because now he's the minority leader because Pelosi is the leader. And you could see we have Chuck Grassley, who becomes the Senate, the pro tempore of the Senate, meaning he's the most senior member. Doesn't mean oldest, it's how long you served for, and it's 1980. He's been there since. And then you could see on the right, we have a new majority leader for the House, the Democrats, and that's Steny Hoyer. So you guys can see here what, kind of comparing the two. The Senate on the left, which you can see it's spinning to the right, therefore the majority is Republican. It's formally led by Vice President Michael Pence, but it's really led by the majority leader who's elected by the majority of the Senate, and that is Mitch McConnell. On the other side, the House is led by the Speaker, which is Nancy Pelosi, and she's elected by the majority in the House. And the Speaker is the third most powerful person in the United States government behind the Vice President and the President being number one. Why is that? Well, it's because she's closest to the people. The House was who we only directly elected back at the beginning of our country in the 1790s. We didn't get to elect senators until the 17th Amendment was passed in 1913. So please understand that. But you could see the line of succession, which is the 25th Amendment, which shows us it's Vice President, second in line, third in line is the Speaker, the longest, most senior member of the Senate, which would be Chuck Grassley at this point, and then on down all of the cabinets. Okay? The only one that's not called a secretary is the Attorney General. That's William Barr. He runs the Justice Department, which is a cabinet as well. Okay? So if you want to, you have a handout that you can follow. This is just one of the things you would fill out. This is the 116th, even though it says 115th. And let's go through these. So the President of the Senate is Michael Pence. It's just formal. That's one of his constitutional duties. Then you have the most powerful man probably in Congress, Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. And notice the red on the right is Republican versus Democrat. And then the majority whip is John Thune from South Dakota. And then you have Chuck Schumer from New York, Democrat. And then Dick Durbin from Illinois as the whip. And I'm going to talk about whips in a second. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself. And then the most senior member is Chuck Grassley from Iowa. Okay, that's kind of the breakdown there. So let's look at the House breakdown. The Speaker is the most powerful person in the House, third most powerful in our country. I would say her and McConnell kind of can be compared to it, but again, she's officially, because she could take over as the president. So the majority leader is Steny Hoyer from Maryland. The majority whip is James Clyburn from South Carolina. And then the minority leader would be Kevin McCarthy from California and Steve Scalise from Louisiana. Okay, so you can see how it works in terms of the leadership. Now, Steve Scalise was at an event where the people in Congress play softball, and he was shot by somebody who shot, maybe, I think it was like 5 or 6 shots. He got hit, but he was not killed. And then he went to the hospital and recovered, and he's back to work, which is great. We don't want anybody assassinated. And you can see all of the members of Congress, not all of them, but the ones that play, they're taking a knee, making a prayer for him. Whether you are for him or against him, again, that would be a bad thing for our country. So let's talk Nancy Pelosi. She's the most powerful woman in the House and probably in the country as of now in terms of woman. She has 4 formal powers, or the Speaker does. Number 1, they reside or preside over the House while it's in session. They don't necessarily have to be in the front with the gavel, but she has officially the gavel. She is the most senior person in terms of that and the most powerful. Number 2, she is a major role in creating committees, especially when you have the ranking member and the chair. And well, in her situation, she would put the chair, the leader of every House committee, and it would be a Democrat. So she has the power of doing that. The minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, would put on the ranking member, the minority group on every committee as well. And there always has to be a majority of members from, in this case, the Democrats on all committees in the House because they have the majority. Number 3, they appoint legislative leaders, which is kind of what I said in terms of how they do it. So they help create the committees, and then they appoint the leaders of that, at least the chair. And she exercised control of bill assignments. So let's say you're a Republican and you give your bill ready to go to Speaker Pelosi, and she says, oh, thank you. And she takes your bill and puts it to the bottom of the pile. She has no vested interest in trying to get your bill heard. You probably wouldn't give her your bill until you had Republican leadership there. So she's going to try to help out all Democrat bills, and that's the power of the majority. Paul Ryan did the same thing when he was a Republican speaker prior to 2018 when he left. Okay, he retired. So very powerful. And you can see here, this was a famous photo that was taken where Nancy's standing up to the president. And you can see some of the guys have kind of like, whoa, on their face, or they're looking straight down when people are arguing. And you can see Nancy trying to stand up to Trump, again, as a female and a power position. So you can see they both tweeted about it. And Donald Trump said, nervous Nancy's unhinged meltdown. So, he just kind of uses his bullying terms to make her feel bad. And on the other hand, she used it as her Twitter, whatever you call that, the picture at the top. Okay. I found a funny one where somebody made her huge, and I thought that was kind of funny, but whatever. All right. So what is the whip do? Okay, you knew I would do it, right? It's not that one. So the whip assists the majority and the minority leaders. And you could see them both. The majority whip of the Senate on the left, John Thune, and on the right, you see Dick Durbin. And on the bottom is Steve Scalise and James Clyburn. So you can see them. So they count the votes. So when Mitch McConnell goes to his majority whip and says, I need you to go count the votes on the next bill we're going to try to pass in the pandemic, he goes and counts and whips up the vote, stirs up the vote, and tries to get people to vote, especially in his party, a certain way. They count it and they go back to the majority leader and say, this is where we're at. And I'll show you some of those as well. So that's kind of what I was just saying right there. So I don't know if you've ever seen, I don't have a song. Yeah, here's the other I hope you've heard Whip It. Anyways, so this is like an older graphic from 2013 when Obama and the administration was thinking about using force in Syria. So this is the latest whip count as of that date for the House. And you could see the whips would go around and tally all this stuff. Yes or no, unlikely, undecided, whatever the case is, this is how they would progress through it and find out how the vote was going to go. And that way they can predict things in the future.
Hey, do you know what the whip does?
What whip?
The whip in the Senate and the House?
Well, in the old days when the senators didn't vote the way that the party leaders wanted them to, they whipped them.
You better vote the way we want you to, or there's going to be big trouble.
All right, so that's from Seinfeld, guys. I know you might not be a Seinfeld watcher, one of my favorite shows of all time, at least in comedies. Again, that's not what it is. They never use a whip, but people are confused by it, and hopefully you're clear now on what it is. So you could see other whip. This is an impeachment against Trump, and this was just last year, a year ago. They were starting to tally all this stuff, and you can see who was for, against, and awaiting responses. Again, the list grew. Each time I went to look at it, you could see the breakdown of this. And this is kind of what the whips would do. So let's talk about the legislative jobs of Congress. Number one is to make laws. No, I mean, there aren't in any order, but again, that's what the legislative branch does, is to make laws. You can write a bill. Anybody can write a bill, an interest group, a lobbyist, Mr. Antoon, you, Senator, anybody can write a bill, but they have to pass it. And there's no way they're going to take your bill without cutting it up and adding amendments like crazy to it. So again, you still have the opportunity, but they have to pass it. They get to lay and collect taxes. So it's tax and spend. They lay taxes on us, they collect them, and then they spend it back on us or spend it on what they need to do to protect the country. But there's a lot of other ones. They pass what they call appropriations. This is authorizing the government to spend a certain amount of money. When Trump wants his wall built, he has to get it appropriated by Congress. But his shortcut to it was to call a national emergency of the invasion from Mexico to get money diverted from the Pentagon's budget, the military defense budget, to help build his wall. And a judge did check and balance him on that and stop that from happening. And then there's oversight. This is one of the big ones that you might not know what this is. Oversight is where they get a chance to investigate anything where their money goes. So if they gave money to the wall, they can go down and investigate to see how it was spent. And if you are found to be using the money in an inappropriate way, they're going to have a case about it and most likely put you in jail. Not most likely, but you guys know what I'm saying. That you can be convicted by Congress of inappropriation of the money and get in trouble as a result. And lastly, they are the ones who declare war. It's not a state. It's not the president. It is Congress. And the last time America declared war on a foreign country was in World War II. I know you think it's Pearl Harbor, but again, we declared war in Germany, Austria, all of the Axis powers, Japan, Italy. So you guys are seeing it. But again, I wanted to make sure that you knew it was World War II, the last one. So how can we have been at war for so many years since without a declaration of war? And we'll talk about that later when we get to the presidential unit. Okay, so here are all the expressed powers for Congress. And look, again, Article 1, Section 8 is humongous. You can see peacetime powers. They have 18 things they can do. And it's not 18, I apologize. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you can see that it's 6 things on the right for war powers. So this is how powerful Congress is. You can see their appropriations budget. Let's just look at defense. $514 billion in 2017. They raised it to $584 in 2018. They spend, Congress, $1.131 trillion in fiscal year 2018. It's a lot of money, guys. And this is what $1 trillion look like. I don't know if you remember the graphic I did, but this little dude here on the bottom left of it is a 6-foot man. And these are pallets. One of those pallets is $1 million. These are double stacked pallets, and look how big it is. That's $1 trillion visually. Crazy. All right, so what's a caucus now? This is the informal organization of Congress. I talked to you about the 2 chambers. I talked about the leaders. Those are formal. Informal are groups that promote common interest. You would call them a clique, a club, a sports team, a cheerleaders, whatever you may be, the video game nerds, whatever it is. I'm part of that, by the way. So don't hate. But you could see they're as important as the formal structure because they get together. You could see on the left in the Senate, finance, lawyers, lobbyists, health, agribusiness, labor, and so on. These are informal, and they can help get bills passed. And that's an important one for you to understand. There's houses. You can see big labor and big money. Those are the big 2 caucuses in there. Or would you say caucus? I think it's caucuses. And they dominate. Congress is dominated by these. There's so many. There's about 500 today. And again, the goal is to promote their own interest. And you could see the upward trend of congressional caucuses up to the 12th Congress in 2012. And again, here's a couple ideas. On the Democratic side, these are two big ones, the Blue Dog Coalition and the House Freedom Caucus. We're not going to go through each one, but I want you to know Bill Clinton was part of the Blue Dog, which is kind of fiscal conservative, even though it's really libertarian to some degree because you're socially liberal like a Democrat, but you're fiscally conservative. And I think that's why Bill Clinton won in 92, because he was from the South and he was a fiscal conservative, and they were okay with that. And they got rid of Bush Sr. But the House Freedom Caucus is Ted Cruz's caucus, part of the Tea Party one, that they're the ones who are truly conservative completely about everything and really constitutional, literalists from the Constitution. Again, you're going to see all the different ones here. But again, the Freedom Caucus is the one that's stirring up a lot in the House. And then lastly, congressional staff. You could see they have personal staff, committee staff. There's a lot of people here. They staff agencies. So you're going to be, in a sense, bipartisan or really not affiliated with a party when you're working for an agency like the Congressional Budget Office, where they can figure out how much things cost because they're dealing with the money. So in the year 2000, every representative hired 14 staff members, while the average senator hired 34 people. That's like a small business. I would love to have just one assistant. It'd be great. It'd make my job a lot easier. So there's about 12,000 people who work for Congress to some degree in any of these agencies or for the members. It's a lot, guys. And there's their salary. If you're chief of staff, I mean, you're making almost six figures, guys. That's pretty good in 2009. It's probably going to be like 130, 140 today because that's 2009 money on the right. But again, these are all the things you can do if you work for Congress. Okay, so with committees and subcommittees, these guys handle a specific duty. So if you're part of the Appropriations Committee, which is a standing committee, if you look at the chart, it's a standing committee here. They deal with the money and where it goes. And again, you have oversight over that. Well, let's say you're part of the judiciary. You're the ones helping nominate, or not nominate, but confirm judges that are appointed by the president. So these are kind of little legislatures that are out there, and they monitor everything that's going on with the public sector. I mean, obviously they can look at the private sector to see if they're doing something against the government or the Constitution, but really they're focusing on their own institution. And again, they do all these things. I'm not going to go through each one of them, guys. And you can see here in April of last year, the House Democrats demand 6 years of Trump tax returns. This is oversight. He is a public servant. They can do this. But again, Trump is fighting it. Even though he promised that he'd release his taxes when he became president, he has yet to do that. Alarming? Question mark. All right, there are four types of committees. There is a standing or permanent committees. They're there all the time, and you can see some of them on the left. There are joint committees in which you have Joint Economic Committee from somebody in the Senate and the House. They combine the committees together. That's what it's trying to show you. And then there's conference committees in which they have to resolve differences between bills in the House and the Senate. So if my bill on whatever it may be, getting a drinking fountain in my classroom, and I have a bill written on it, and the Senate doesn't like it, and they write up their stuff, and the House doesn't like it, they get together and they iron out their differences and compromise, which is really cool. And then number 4 is a select committee. These are made very quickly and temporarily until they fix the issue. So this can be Intelligence Committee, where there's, you see a Republican chair and then the Democrat is the ranking member. And notice I've highlighted it to help you guys see that. Here are some famous select committees. 9/11 Commission report, where they looked at what happened to 9/11, the Iraq War in 2003, and then Benghazi, what happened, I forgot the exact year, it was 2012 that it happened. So they're temporary committees that are made to look at what happens in the short term. And then the most recent one was the Mueller report, the investigation into the Russian interference in the 2016 election, in which Trump got impeached from, but then was forgiven from the Senate. So here's just an example of who in the Senate, who would be the chairman or the number one in every committee. It would be a Republican, and then the ranking member would all be Democrats for all the committees. And the same thing would apply if it's the House. You could see the House has the majority, so they're the chairs, and then the minority would be the Republicans. How does seniority work? This is cool. You guys are seniors in high school. So you're the most senior high school at this point. You have seniority, right? So these are just privileges and, who has served the longest there. So you get better choices, better offices, committee assignments, you get the priority there. More power you have with more seniority. And most people where they sit in the Senate, because that's the Senate chambers, is at the front. You might, as a student, go to the back because you don't care, or you like to sit in the back, but to sit in the front is the power move in the Senate and in the House. Okay. Now let's talk about your seniority at Westlake. Let's name some. Think about some of them on your own. I'll give you a second. I don't have the Jeopardy music to play, but again, at Westlake, here's your seniority list: parking, off-campus lunch when we're physically there, obviously, guys. I know in the midst of a pandemic when I'm taping this. You get to walk on the W in the Commons. Off periods, more APs, more electives. The spirit stick during rallies, you guys get to control that or win for the most part. You get to leave first and actually go to the pep rallies first, and you're exempt from more finals than anybody else. That's pretty cool. Just think about that with Congress. Same kind of thing, but on a different level. And here's here's the Senate seniority list today. You can see Patrick Leahy's been there since 1975 when I was 5 years old. That's 45 years. Crazy. Chuck Grassley, he's the president pro tempore. He's been there since 81. I was 11. Mitch McConnell since I was 15, and so on. I'm not going to go through that all. Pretty cool. All right, so 11.4 is next, the lawmaking process. How does a bill become a law? Well, number one, you might hear the term, and we're going to use this handout if you're going to take notes on it in a second. But what's a resolution? A House resolution is simply to recognize people, recognize events, groups, situations. For example, we're never going to forget 9/11. That's all is a resolution. So you might see this come out where we say certain things. This is the Patriot Act here. Okay, this act may be said as uniting and strengthening America. That's the Patriot Act on the left. HR, House resolution, no, this is an actual bill, which would be proposed legislation. So this is your House resolution, which is just saying we're never going to forget 9/11 or wherever, whatever they agree on. This is an actual bill. So it's not law yet because it's written up. And this is what you're going to end up doing as your project for this unit. So it could say HR, which is House of Representatives, or it can say Senate. And that's what I wanted to show you here, okay? And then when it gets passed, and I'll show you the procedure it gets passed, it's called a law or an act. And there it is. You can see HR 3, Elijah Cummings, lower drug costs now. You could see how it goes when you go to congress.gov. You can see if it's passed the House, passed the Senate, how many amendments it has, and click on all these buttons, which is pretty cool. This is from Michael McCall. I receive alerts from all the representatives in Austin on my email. I know that's nerdy, but I do it. And then you can see here what Michael McCall is telling us to see. There's the HR 616 Life at Conception Act. Again, it's what he's fighting for. And a law and act, just rules or actions formally recognized and binding by the legislative branch. And it must pass both houses, and the president has to sign it. So let's talk about where it goes. They don't compile, like the Constitution stays the same pretty much except for amendments. But every law that's passed becomes part of the codified laws. And today it's digitized, as you can see here, based on where, what it's talking about. But it's still kept by paper where you can look through code of laws to see what we've done in the past and what we've passed. So let's talk about how it goes from a bill to a law. And this is the original handout on the right, and then I replaced it with Trump, just because he's our president now. And I'm going to talk about, you could see that there's the House and the Senate. House is on the left, Senate's on the right. It's the same exact procedure through these first 4 steps. We're all going to focus on the Senate on the right. And then you can do whatever you need to do if you're copying this at all. So it's introduced in the House. Anybody can write a bill. You introduce it. Once it gets to a senator, they refer it to a committee, subcommittee, where they analyze it, break it down, add amendments, send it back, do whatever they need to do. Once it gets through that, it's voted on by the full committee. It has to pass the majority to move on to a floor debate and vote. And the number is 51% of that committee. Usually it goes by party lines now. And then the Senate debates it on the floor and votes to pass it. If it's passed, It continues on. If it fails, it goes back to the drawing board. Amendments, same process as it goes back. And this is same thing, 51% here. Same with the House. If it passes the Senate, it goes to a conference committee where they write a compromise bill. It goes back and forth to both houses until they iron out their differences and find a compromise. Then the House and Senate vote on the final passage. That's 51%, and the bill is sent to the president's desk. Trump now has the power. And this is where a president will already tell you in advance what he's most likely going to do at this point. And in this situation, Trump can sign the bill into law or veto it. Or there's two parts of veto, just signing as a veto, saying vetoing it, or pocket veto, which is waiting, within 10 days of when Congress adjourns to just sit on it, and then it dies, and then they have to restart the process. So the president can do that, but then Congress can check the president back, and they can override a presidential veto with a 2/3 vote, which is 67% of that chamber of Senate or the House. Not easy thing to do. Congress, both houses have to do that in order to override a presidential veto. So here we go. I'm gonna show you. You might have seen the original video, Schoolhouse Rock. I remember as a kid I saw that. This is similar, but this is saying that there's additional stuff. It's paying homage to it as well. So it takes a minute and 36 seconds. So hopefully you just understand, and that was Vox video. Hopefully you understand it's not easy. And I'm going to show you with these charts how tough it is to actually pass legislation. This is up to 2012. Look at the decrease or the trend downward. And this started, it was 25% in the 50s under Eisenhower. And then all of a sudden, the lack of trust in government, the division in the 90s and so on, we do not, to the point of like 3% passing bills. The 113th Congress, you can see there, which was in 2014, you could see just looking at these charts, again, how low it is. It says least productive since World War II. Again, this was updated in 2014, so it's an older one. Bills passed to 2016. It's still low and low and low. Not easy to do here. There's the 116th. Again, I don't have a date on when this was done, but you can see it's only at 1% now. So what happens is when the Republicans want to pass something and they have the majority, they'll force it through and the Democrats won't get anything done. And then when they get the majority, the Democrats force it through and the Republicans get mad. It becomes more partisan or divided than ever, especially today. That's why the numbers are so low comparatively. So you can see here, again, passing the House or passing the Senate, depending on, House Democrats fighting for the people versus the Senate Republican inaction. These are all the things that Nancy Pelosi have passed in the past 3 years that have not passed the Senate. This shows you the partisanship, whatever it is here. I mean, obviously we don't know the details about everything, but it's still showing us how divided and how partisan we are. Again, number of laws signed in the first year as a president. Look at the numbers for Trump. It's the worst. And I'm sure you don't want to tell it to Trump because he would get hurt and get mad and anger tweet angry tweet. But again, it's been, look, W. Bush and Obama, it's been the lowest it's been. So you're seeing that comparison. All right, let's talk about the filibuster and how this has gotten in the way of a lot of things as of recently. It's a procedural action to delay or prevent a legislative vote, and it's used by the minority party because the majority is already going to pass what they want. This is the minority right to stand up and say, I'm going to stop in the way. And you notice the chart, you can see the rise in the filibuster, especially under Obama's first 2 years, guys. It skyrocketed. So what do you have to do? And again, Republicans filibustered more than Democrats since 1992. Here are the rules. You can't stop talking. You have to continue to talk. You're allowed water or milk. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't sit down. You can't leave unless someone replaces you. And you can read anything you want. And I'll show you a funny example in a second. The only way to stop a filibuster is for the entire Senate. This is only a Senate, guys, not the House. Only the Senate. I should say that. It doesn't say it on the screen. The only way to stop a filibuster is cloture. And you need 60% or 60 senators to stop somebody's filibuster so they can move towards the vote. It is very, 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 very tough to do. And in 2013, Harry Reid, the former majority leader for the Senate as a Democrat, used what he called, they voted a simple majority to get rid of the filibuster, to overrule it in a sense, and then confirm judges for Obama. And then in 2017, the first Supreme Court justice by Mitch McConnell, they used the same procedure. They got rid of the filibuster, voted a simple majority for Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh, the last two justices, were put in without a filibuster being allowed. So things have changed a little bit. And again, I wanted to show you that and how Mitch McConnell changed it and used it. So he wasn't first. It was Harry Reid, the Democrat. And McConnell came back and used it later. And that's what the cartoons were trying to say there. And again, Jeff Flake, a former senator of Arizona for Republicans, said the Senate filibuster is about the only mechanism left in Washington that brings the parties together. Deploying the nuclear option would blow that up. I will not vote to do it. So he's just showing you because Donald Trump says to use the nuclear option, because that's what it's referred to as, to get things done. And that's what McConnell did. That's how you smash it through, and that's what pisses off the other side. And there's Trump saying, switch to a 51 votes, get rid of the filibuster. I'm not going to play these videos here now, but I mean, these are videos that you can watch on the filibuster. There's a couple here, but I'm going to show you a funny filibuster. The longest one in history, you can see it here. Strom Thurmond spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes. And you can see all the way down the list, Ted Cruz, 21 hours, 19 minutes. About Obamacare. Rand Paul, who's currently there, 12 hours and 52 minutes on the, he's against the spying on Americans. And you can see there's Strom Thurmond showing you his record time. He was filibustering the Civil Rights Act of 1957. Even though he's a Democrat, he's truly Republican because it flipped. Democrats used to be Republicans until the 1960s, and then it flipped over when LBJ and Martin Luther King signed all the the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of the 60s. You could see it, and then the whole South flipped from Democrat to Republican. And there's Rand Paul speaking about the Patriot Act. All right, so you could see here again, they're voting to cloture, and they couldn't get it. It was 48-52. They needed to have it 60-40. That's how you get rid of the filibuster. And here's our senator reading his book, and here's a snippet of it. See if you can guess the book.
And I love this story, and so I'm going to read it to you.
Damn, it says it in the title.
Sam I am. That Sam I am, that Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them with a mouse?
Okay.
I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere.
All right, you guys got the point. So in the history of the United States, 168 presidential nominees have been filibustered. 86 all presidents before Obama, and 82 were under Obama. So now we're starting to see even more partisanship. And now under Trump, it's happening as well. So just understand that the filibuster's there to stop the other majority from getting stuff done. So again, we're not respecting it. We're kind of destroying it. So filibuster might go away in our lifetimes. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these. So in terms of notes, we're going to talk some of this stuff as we get going. The Senate voted to require congressional approval for further attacks against Iran, and then Trump was going to veto that. So that's just happened in February of this year. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, I just wanted to figure out if we were near the end. So here's what I want to ask you to do. Go and find your rep. You go to house.gov, because senators you already know. You can actually type that in or just go to house.gov and enter your zip code. This is Austin. So you could see here, let me just click on the screen. Sorry. That's where I live by Vandergrift. And then that's Austin. Okay. So you guys should be able to figure out where you live. That drop pin is Westlake High School. So we're in the 25th, Roger Williams. You can see how kind of weird this is. This is called what they call redistricting, and our district is shaped like that because it's been gerrymandered, and we'll talk about that later. But again, I want you to find your rep because you can't do it now because we're zooming. Okay, that is it for today. I'll see you on the last lecture for 5 and 6. You guys take care. I'll see you on the next one.